Now with our large domestic violence program here, family violence program, we're beginning to get a very good image of those children who are exposed to the violence, who are seeing the violence in their household and realizing that they are the ones that are most impacted in life forever by that vision of their father and mother interacting in a very violent way. That there's something so disruptive of visualizing that violence between your parents or between your caretakers that it forever tends to scramble your ability to have a happy, productive life.
You know, I think child abuse is at the root of a lot of our social problems. First, there are the obvious effects on the child, the immediate effects on the child of being abused, the pain and the trauma associated with being sexually abused or physically abused. And then there are the long-term consequences that can even be lifelong consequences for kids who've been abused. Many of these kids are at greater risk of developing substance abuse problems as they grow up, of being depressed, of behaving aggressively towards society, the society that has been mean to them, they will strike back out against. Kids who have been abused often have great difficulty developing trusting, intimate relationships. Their self-esteem is often very damaged.
The bad news is when you look at the individuals who populate the jails and populate psychiatric institutions, it's clear that those individuals predominantly have been abused as children.
As custodians of innocent children, it is our duty to report suspicions of abuse. What steps must we take and what are the repercussions?
Yes, I am a licensed home daycare provider. I received my license May of this year. Licensed home daycare providers like myself are mandated reporters for child abuse.
With teachers, I think one of their basic fears is that they're going to make a child abuse report and then they're going to have an extremely angry parent to deal with. A related fear, perhaps, is that they'll have an angry child to deal with, or a child who feels betrayed by them because they have revealed a confidence. These fears are usually not realized.
I think once your mind goes to suspicion, which says, I think this child is abused or neglected, you report and you back off and you let the professionals have an opportunity to evaluate that case. That may require that you ask a child a question, such as, how did you get that bruise? And once the child says, my dad hit me, you stop and you let the professionals get involved. The last thing we want is for untrained individuals to become investigators, because then questions are asked that make it very difficult for programs like ours, which is multidisciplinary and has social workers and mental health professionals, forensic experts, law enforcement, etc. within the unit, give us a chance to find the truth. And then the cases go towards protecting the child. You know, regardless of what we say about the criminal justice system, our ultimate goal, obviously, is protecting the child.
We are to report if we suspect child abuse. We're not supposed to go and investigate. It's not our responsibility. But if a child comes to school bruised up and he tells you, Mommy did it, Mommy beat me last night, or Father burned me with a cigarette, or because those kinds of things do happen and they happen every day.
Working in my career with all kinds of school people, not just teachers, nurses, psychologists. This runs a whole array of individuals that work in the schools. That gut feeling cannot be replaced. If anything, we tend to be too conservative. We tend to be too cautious. But when we feel there's something wrong, there usually is.
Mandated reporters are a number of different professionals who have contact with kids, including teachers, school administrators, school psychologists, mental health professionals, doctors, dentists, and so forth. And their job as mandated reporters is to report any suspicion of child abuse or neglect.
It's not my responsibility as a daycare provider to investigate abuse, but to report suspicion.
They are with children very often more than the parent. I mean, they're there on an average of 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, from preschool all the way to the 12th grade. So they're in a position better than anyone to see changes in behavior, in performance, in appearance, to make comparisons with other children, to be right there if a child needs some assistance or needs to confide in someone.
By law, all reporters are guaranteed confidentiality, whether they're mandated or not. The worker that goes out for a face-to-face contact with the parents and the kids is by law forbidden to tell them who made the report. Mandated reporters have the option of being in touch with the social worker and finding out the outcome of the investigation.
Any reports of child abuse are kept extremely confidential. Your name is not disclosed. Nothing will come back to you as a home daycare provider.
Child Abuse Hotline, this is me, Dorothy Johnson. How can I help you?
Mandated reporters fill out a form which they use to follow up after they make their call. And if they've got that form filled out, they have all the information we want. You know, the address and the children's names and their dates of birth and all the details about the family, plus the description of the abuse or neglect.
My advice to mandated reporters, regardless of their feeling, they have a responsibility for the safety and well-being of this child to make the call. Once they make their call, the responsibility is out of their hands.
If the agencies discover that there is no child abuse, that this was a mistaken type of behavior, a mistaken type of identification of a behavior, that report is destroyed. If it's considered to be unfounded, it doesn't go anywhere else. So we've erred in favor of the child, we've erred in favor of the possibility that a child needs protection. The children that are removed, rest assured, cannot say 100% of the time, but I would certainly say upwards of 95% of the time are abused children and are usually seriously abused children. So this is not common practice to remove children from their homes. In fact, it happens very rarely.
We children practitioners have a special relationship with children. We can use this to help victims of abuse.
I think there are a lot of ways that teachers and nurses and other school personnel can offer support to kids who've been mistreated. Certainly just listening is a great start. Many kids are not listened to in their home.